Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Caryn Johnson, the Earth Channel, with another message for you today about human design, my take on it, and with help from Gaia, Mother Earth. Continuing the series of not only sharing with you energy reports for the week, but also messages about what these energies have to share with us as they are shown in human design charts for the week. These charts are taken obviously from one moment in time or another from the week, and they show the energy for the week as if showing the energy of someone who was born at that time. So if someone was born at that time, this is the chart they would have. And so in a way, the energy of the week is like a person being born, is like a being being born into this physical world. And of course, it influences all of us as we all influence each other. And so I will speak of it both as the energy for the week as well as giving you some insight into the types of characteristics you might notice with a person who has a chart that is similar, or in particular, a channel that is defined for the week that you may find defined in someone else's chart or your own chart. So if you would like to run your or another person's chart right now, you can go to humandesignamerica.com/chart and check it out, see if they have any similar energies. The channel I am going to speak about in particular this week is the 2145. And we are continuing now for the second week where we are speaking about a channel that is not connected to the emotional center. We've covered a lot of those. We only have 2 of them left, I believe. But this one does not connect to the emotional center, and yet it is the third and final manifesting channel that we will speak about. And what I would like to point out in particular about manifesting channels, there are about 36 channels in human design charts overall. And if they are defined in a chart, they will be colored in red or black or some combination of those. And with only 3 of them being called manifesting channels, the other 2 are connected to the emotional center, which I have explained in previous videos, tells you a bit about how you need to manifest anything in your life, whether you have those channels defined in your chart or not, whether anyone else does or not. It is important to get in touch with the feeling that is desired with anything you might want to manifest. And oftentimes, once you get in touch with that feeling and you really hold it in your consciousness, you can then manifest all kinds of things that you may not have even thought of before that match that feeling. And so if you can do that, you can be delighted with what comes rather than holding too tightly to any one particular type of physical thing that you might think will bring you that feeling. However, this channel departs from that particular theme. It connects the will center to the throat. All of them connect to the throat. The will center, like the emotional center, is also called a motor center, as in it generates a certain amount of energy. The most powerful motor, and eventually we will get to the manifesting generator channel, which is a little different but similar in these respects. That one is connected to the most powerful motor, which is the sacral center. And it is also defined, but by a different channel in this week's chart. It is the red square. The will center is the red triangle. And it connects to, like I said, the throat, which is the brown square. Like I said or I may not have said this yet in this video, but before, whenever a channel is defined, it defines the center on either end. And so if this channel is defined in your chart, you will have the will center defined or red, and you will have the throat center defined or brown in your chart. You may have it also defined by another channel. Maybe not this channel, it's possible. So when these channels or centers are not defined or open, undefined, however you want to call it, in your chart, they will be white. And so the white parts in your chart indicate those parts that are open or undefined. So with this channel in particular, in the human design community, it is typically thought of, believed to be, one of the most powerful channels possible. Now, like I said, it isn't connected to the sacral center, which is known as the most powerful motor center in the body, but it carries with it its own burden in a way, its own sense of being a bit blinded by all that energy. Whereas the will center, being a slightly less powerful motor center, carries with it a little more clarity, a little more focus. And this particular channel is sometimes referred to as the money line. But being a manifesting channel, manifestors, if you have a manifestor type, if you go to that site I mentioned and you run your chart and you're either a manifestor or a manifesting generator, you will have elements of this that you will notice in your being naturally from your natal chart. Anyone, however, can access these energies and this power and these manifesting abilities. So I'll get to that a bit more in a moment. But if you have this channel, and perhaps maybe it's the only channel defined in your chart, you would be a manifestor. And you could be a manifestor with other things defined, but we won't get into all those different variables. Manifestors are known for having a closed, dense aura about them. And it has the ability to move energy, sort of move things out of the way. And then the one thing that may or may not have been covered with you before is that once that has been accomplished, once that initiation has sort of impacted a situation or people and gotten that ball rolling, so to speak, then it needs to rest because it is basically there to sort of get things started. Whereas the sacral center, like I said, the most powerful motor in the body, the red square, it needs to have a strong yes response to things. But once that does happen, it has the energy to then sustain the work on that particular thing that it had the yes response to. And maybe it's a yes response to a manifestor or a manifesting type of energy like this coming into their awareness and saying, yes, I do want to sustain work on that particular thing. And so in the past, there was a metaphor, an allegory, I guess you could say, that played out where manifestors were known as the rulers, those who initiated action, those who commanded certain things to begin in their realm. And then the generators were known as the workers, sometimes the slaves, unfortunately. Now, I do believe that we are evolving past that paradigm, past that way of being, past that way of relating to each other. And I no longer believe there is any need for slaves. I'm not sure there was to begin with, but we all sort of chose to play that out in different ways. And so here's where I want to touch upon some of the reasons for this type of dynamic between people. And in my past videos, I have spoken about compromises before. That means that one person has that full channel defined and another person in some kind of interaction or relationship, friendship perhaps, with that person who has that channel defined has only one of those gates in that same channel defined. And it can be an uncomfortable feeling. not necessarily unlike that of slavery. Obviously, that's, uncomfortable would be an understatement in that situation, obviously. And I'm not trying to minimize it. But that is the definition of a compromise in human design. And in this case in particular, the person who has that full channel defined is definitely going to feel like they have a certain access to power that the other person may not, especially initially, before they come into the awareness of how they can access that power themselves at any time. So you can see how that would feel uncomfortable. But we've all had past lives. I personally believe in reincarnation. I believe most of the people who are going to find and watch this video and have watched my previous videos probably also believe in reincarnation. And I believe that we have all incarnated at times when we were made to be submissive to certain types of power, and at times when we were the ones holding that power. And, hopefully we use that power for good. Hopefully in the submissive role, we were not necessarily abused, but we can't necessarily say that was the case for all of us, or maybe any of us. I believe that the reason for the creation of this type of world where that type of power dynamic existed was for us to understand not only how we can do this in a better way, but why we would want to have this dynamic play out in a better way. And sometimes that takes seeing it done in the wrong way, in the bad way, in the way that hurts people, unfortunately. And so in order for us to learn these lessons, we all chose to play these different roles at different times and agreed that, like all of us here in the third dimension who have incarnated in those times, in the third dimension in the past, all of us have experienced pain in one way or another. And those who have sought more power usually did so out of a feeling, probably during childhood, of not having had that power. I mean, children are the most vulnerable to having power over them, other, adults having power over them, obviously. And yet they do have access, even in childhood, to a certain kind of power, a certain innocence, a certain way of not knowing that they don't have power yet, at least at some point or another. And believe it or not, whether you've gotten in touch with this particular truth or not, sometimes adults exert power inappropriately over children because they sense that that child has access to a great amount of power, greater, maybe not, than that child realizes. And the adult feels threatened by it and wants to sometimes, unfortunately, play out that dynamic where they themselves in childhood experienced that power being placed over them. And by working it out as an adult that way with other children, they are trying to resolve it within themselves. Now, that being said, like I said before, there is no longer any need for us to play it out that way. We have had plenty of opportunity now through our own past lives and through others to learn this lesson. And so it is now time for us to evolve and move on and acknowledge those better ways of being, those better ways of having this dynamic play out. And so let's get to that. The way to express this power rightly with love, ethically is another way to say that, is to get in touch with what it is that what purpose is meant to be accomplished through your initiation of this particular kind of power. And so I'd like to speak to a person who I know has this channel in his natal birth chart. And I'm not going to share with you his birth information, although he has shared it online. He's a fellow YouTuber, and I have taken channeling classes from him, and so I credit him with showing me better how to bring forth these messages from Gaia each week. His name is Daniel Scranton, and he channels the ninth dimensional Arcturian Council almost every day of the week. And like I said, has channeling classes. And so he's a wonderful example of having really found his purpose in life of channeling, of teaching others how to channel, and of having right livelihood for himself. You know, he's able to make a living, and I think he works very hard. He actually does have the sacral center defined in his birth chart as well. And so he has that energy to sustain that work. He's not just using the initiation power from the will center, although he has that as well. He's using both of those motors and has found a wonderful way to bring forth a higher vibration. That's one of the other classes that he has available, High Vibration Masterclass, to show others how to not only access this power, but to manifest the type of reality that they want for themselves. And I would have to say, even of the feeling, even though I said this channel does not connect to the emotional center, Daniel Scranton, as far as I understand in his birth chart, has that emotional center open, and so he would be considered empathic. And yet he has found ways to access the power of those emotions and those feelings and create a wonderful reality for himself, as well as sharing it with others through his teaching, through his channeling, through his bringing forth these wonderful energies into the world in a way that uplifts others. And so that is the way I believe we are all meant to manifest. I believe we are all meant to access our power, and we are all meant to find this new way, this new dynamic way of being in this world and with each other, impacting each other for the better, and also recognizing when something is appropriate for us. And then once we have partaken of this particular manifestation that we have created, we also then, with this channel in particular, need to recognize the need to rest and receive. Sometimes still in this world, even though I believe we are progressing into the fourth dimension on our way to the fifth dimension, we are not yet instantly manifesting everything or anything necessarily. So once we have put that energy out into the world, that manifesting energy, sometimes we still do need to just rest and wait for it to come to us and be receptive. Get into that place of appreciation and gratitude while you wait, knowing that it's coming to you, maintaining a focus on the feeling that you're going to have when it comes to you, because you can probably access that feeling anytime you want, just by opening to it, just by tuning into it. And so briefly, before we get to our message from Gaia, Mother Earth, and what she has to share with us about this particular channel, the will center has the 21st gate, and that one in particular carries with it the power from that motor center, especially when the full channel is defined. And then the 45th gate is the one in the throat center. That's where Mercury is right now. It is now moving direct, and was here at the solar eclipse. These throat centers in particular are asking us to speak our truth into the world. And the 45th gate in particular speaks to the realm in which we feel we are on our thrones, so to speak. It's sort of the royalty gate, is the way it's understood in human design. And yet, I want to mention that there is a certain Christ-like energy along with this whole channel, where, Jesus Christ was known as the King of the Jews. You can sort of see the royalty there, and yet he was extremely humble. He inspired others and had a certain amount of authority with others through pure love. And it's not to say that, you have to be a Christian. I'm not saying you should worship him, but there were absolutely examples from his life here on earth where you can see, he spoke about the greatest commandment of all being to love others as you love yourself. That is truly the way to access this power ethically and for the highest good of all concerned, and for your own and others' ascension and unification with the divine, with the love that is all that is. All right, so let's tune into Gaia and see what else she has to share with us about this today. I'll invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths with me. So Gaia would like to point out that since Mercury was at this 45th gate at the time of the solar eclipse recently, it shows the energy that is going to be present and that is going to inspire us to grow and evolve, in particular over the next 6 months or so, until the next lunar and solar eclipses come about. This is our work for the next 6 months, and this is our play for the next 6 months. And the fact that Mercury was there at that time of that solar eclipse means that that energy too is going to be present for us, inspiring us to grow. And especially with Mercury, the messenger, moving through these throat gates, we are really going to be asked not only to speak our truths, but to communicate with others in loving ways about what we have learned, what we are learning. And as we communicate with others about these things, we are also encouraged to listen, excuse the noise, and to see what comes back. See what else someone else has to share with us in response to what we are learning. because that will be part of what we have to learn as well. You may want to experiment with toning, with allowing different kinds of sounds, song, melodies to spring forth from your being through your throats and through your mouths. But in particular, speak what it is that you wish for this world and yourselves. Speak those things as a prayer if you would like, as a request, or perhaps as questions. And just get in touch, like Amy said before, in particular with how you would like to feel. What is the feeling that you're going for that made you think that these would be good things to create in your world? Those who have sought power in the past sought to accumulate that power have usually done so out of a desire for love. And truly, love is powerful. Love is power in many ways. And so it is possible to exercise power when it is coming from a place of absolute and complete love for yourself and all that is, everyone. It is possible for that power to be exercised ethically and for the highest good of all. So power is not a bad thing necessarily. Let us appreciate it for the good that it can do, for the good that it can be, for the good that it can create. And let us also be sure to listen, to get in touch with the highest good for all concerned, to ensure that we are not making any false assumptions about what that highest good is for others, that we are sensitive to and cognizant of the impact that we have on others. When something needs to be created that is for the highest good of only some people, it may be necessary to inform both them and the others of what your intention is. That's why it's the strategy for manifestors to inform. Inform that you're going to initiate this particular course of action or intention so that they can ready themselves to receive it, or perhaps to part ways, go somewhere else. See what else might be on their path for their highest good. There is good sometimes in letting go of things as well, in releasing. Often we come to think of power as having to do with accumulation, but there is great power in simplicity, in traveling lightly, and in identifying the fact that what we truly want and what we truly need is love. And out of that love, that altruistic love, comes everything that we need. comes the power to obtain that which we truly need from ethical sources. And Gaia would like to remind you that in creating these worlds, these realms, these realities, she wants to co-create with us too. That there is a place for all of life, all of creation. And when we open our hearts to that, to receiving the wonderful gifts from the creation that is Gaia, we can truly be nourished, supported, and held in every way we need, whenever we need to. Allow Gaia to be that mother for you. Allow that reality to come into being as we ascend with Gaia to the fifth dimension. Deep breath. Send love to yourself and send love out to all around you, everyone else in this world. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste, beloveds. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, and clicking the bell button to be notified when the new weekly message comes out.